Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Tim Sawyer, and I'm the president and co-founder of Crystal Clear Digital Marketing. And for those who don't know Crystal Clear, we are a fully integrated software marketing and training solution for health, wellness, and aesthetic practices. Currently, we work with hundreds of clients in over 4 countries. And today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is how to effectively utilize social media to grow your practice. And in the context of that, the most important thing is that we understand why is it that we are doing social media at all. And so I spent a lot of time traveling the country, speaking at various events, last year over 40 events, and speaking with practitioners from all walks of life and all different size practices. And the conversation always seems to revolve around how do we get more shares and likes from our social media strategy, which I reject the premise of the question, because the reality is there's only one reason we do anything in business, and that is to increase the quantity and quality of traffic to our website and phones, convert that traffic into paying patients, and then keep them forever. In other words, how do we use social media to drive the bottom line? And before we do that, it has to start with some basic awareness, right? And one of those, the important elements of that awareness is around the basic metrics associated with your online or your digital presence. So I like to start every webinar with these basic questions, and that is, do you know currently how many unique visits occurred on your website? Do you know what percentage of those visitors came from your connected accounts? In this case, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, in some cases, Instagram. Do you know what percentage of those visitors converted into an online form or a call? In other words, do you have a way to track phone calls into your website from social mediums? Do you know what percentage of those converted into consultations? Do you know how much money they spent to generate those consultations? Do you know how much money your business received from those consultations? Do you know how much money your practice made from your social media marketing efforts last month? And do you know your ROI, should you care? And that's going to form the premise of the discussion that we're going to have over the next 45 minutes, okay? Next, some other questions that I'd like to ask, and again, because it's important to understand, right? If the discussion is going to revolve around how do we grow our practice through the use of social media, one of the key distinctions we need to make is that there is a continuum along the social media line. In other words, it's not just about social media marketing, it's about social media marketing, driving traffic to our website, converting that traffic on the site according to the metrics we just discussed, and then converting those folks who actually fill out a form or call to practice. And so some important ideas to think about. In elective medicine, all the laws of retail apply to you. In other words, if this person is out of network, not being billed through insurance, it's an elective procedure. We always have to remember that the modern medical consumer has options. Not only do they have multiple options if you drew, a 10-mile radius around your practice, your competition, so you've got to compete, but they also have the option to just not do it, right? And so because of that, all the laws of retail that apply to Nordstrom's and McDonald's and BMW now apply to you. And so we have to understand what that means. Number one, 45% of all salespeople never follow up. They get an inquiry and they stop. 25% make a second attempt and stop there. 17% make 3 contact attempts and stop. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 attempts. And I understand this sounds a little bit crazy in the context of a modern medical practice because so many people have so much to do. There's limited resources, and the last thing you need to be told is you need to make more follow-up calls to get these people. But if the ultimate goal of social media is to grow the practice, which means get more patients, then this is probably the most important part of the discussion, right? 2% of sales are closed on the first call, 3% on the second contact, 5% on the third contact, 10% on the fourth contact, 80% on the 5th to 12th contact. So the question is, what is your process to contact, follow up, and close more patients who choose to connect with your practice through social media, because it all starts here. So creating nice posts that are pretty with dogs and cats and getting 15 likes and shares, that's all well and good, but that's not going to sell tummy tucks, breast augmentations, chemical peels, or whatever it is that you do. Okay? So we're going to talk about top media sites and relevance, social media strategies, analytics, best practices, and social media ROI, how to get it and keep it growing. Okay? As we all know, we've discussed this in the past, the social patient has lower attention spans, higher expectations, and 24/7 internet connectivity. And the best way to bring this to light, or to put this in perspective, is to think about your digital activities from the time you got home last night to right now. How many of you went on the internet? How many of you visited a social medium? How many of you visited multiple social mediums? How many of you shopped for a product? How many of you looked at the reviews? How many of you went to the Facebook pages of those organizations? And then it becomes crystal clear, no pun intended, that this is true. We have lower attention spans, we have higher expectations, and lots of clutter. Okay, so the million-dollar question is, what is the most important component of any successful social media strategy? And the answer is you. Because you are the person who's going to drive your people, create the processes, and purchase and implement the tools you need to be successful in converting social media patients into patients in your practice. Question is, do you believe that? In other words, do you believe that it's possible to take somebody from Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, whether it's Twitter, that through education, through consistency and frequency in our posting, that we can take that person from that social media, drive them to a landing page on our site that has specific calls to action, and convert them into a paying patient? Do you believe that? And that's an important question, because the reality is belief equals behavior. So in other words, if you believe it, then you're going to have behaviors that actually make that come to fruition, versus saying, yeah, I kind of believe it, but the reality is we've never converted one single person from Facebook or Twitter or any other social medium. So the doctor wants us to do it, so I'm just checking boxes. I'm not really interested in getting patients, but I'm posting. So what I like to call box checking. Okay? The reality is you can use social media and automation to drive per patient revenue, retention, referrals, new opportunities, lead conversion, and even team performance, right? So a lot of times when people talk about, or practice managers talk about the application of social media, it's usually in the context of how can we get more patients from social media, which is a perfectly legitimate question and one that we're dealing with right now. The second is, though, how does social media impact retention? How does it impact referrals? How does it impact lead conversion? And the reality is this. Even the most coveted word-of-mouth referral in the modern medical practice, in other words, you have a great patient, they're getting great results, they tell their friend, this guy, this gal is amazing, this practice is amazing, I highly recommend you go there. We all know once that person leaves your company and gets back to their house or their desk or their phone and they have some quiet time, what is the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go to your website, they're going to look at your social media pages, they're going to look at your reviews, and then that highly coveted referral has now become an online patient. So social media is not just to attract new patients, but it's to increase retention, referrals, and lead conversion. Okay, it has a significant impact because at the end of the day, we all know, and it's tough for practitioners to hear this, that the strongest influencer of conversion of an online consumer is not the CV or the resume of the provider. We wish it was, particularly a plastic surgeon who's devoted 18 years of his life or her life to getting to where they are, and then they realize that before and after galleries and reviews are the primary influencers of conversion. And it's irrefutable and it's data driven. So what we want to talk about is social media management and engagement, how to execute daily posts, increase followers, execute campaign management, reporting, and strategy. And so what we have here for you are the most popular, the biggest social mediums that are typically utilized and integrated into an effective practice growth strategy. So you've got Facebook, LinkedIn for various reasons, not that it's going to be a huge driver of direct from LinkedIn to the website, although that will happen occasionally, more for backlinking and SEO. You've got Twitter. Pinterest is a fabulous medium, fast-growing medium. It's got great analytics, great opportunity to advertise on Pinterest. And then, of course, you've got Snapchat and Instagram. And just think about that for a second, the fact that we're now sitting on a phone call and talking about using Snapchat potentially to increase the quantity and quality of patients to your medical practice. It's exciting, I think. And so what I want to talk about first is organic versus paid, and we'll use this in the context of Facebook. So we're going to talk about effective utilization of paid advertising and like campaigns. First, organic. The benefits are it's cost effective. In other words, it's free. What do I mean by an organic post? You could go right now, you're the admin on Facebook or any other medium, create a post, and it's free. You can do that on an unlimited basis, so you have unlimited posting. The downside is you have limited viewership, and I'm going to talk about what I mean by that. It requires consistency and frequency. It requires you to link back to the specific landing page associated with the treatment or procedure you're posting. And there's a heavy focus on a manual process to attract new followers. So let's start with limited viewership. As you may or may not know, if you have, and let's use this in the context of Facebook, because it's kind of the easiest one that people can grasp. In the context of Facebook, if you create an organic post, in other words, you didn't pay to boost it, it's not a paid post, you can do that all day. However, only at the top 20% of the folks who actually like or follow you on Facebook are going to get exposed to that post. So that means 80 to 85% of your Facebook likes will not see that post, right? And the reason for that is because Facebook, as do many other social mediums, they throttle back or limit the exposure of that post. And why do they do that? Because they want you to pay to gain maximum exposure, okay? So the reason we say frequency and consistency is key is because let's say you have an aesthetic practice and you're trying to promote your specials for the month, posting them once or even once a week and thinking that that's somehow going to have a significant impact on your patient population isn't true because they're not going to see it, right? So what happens a lot of times is we'll say, listen, you may have to repeat this post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, different times of the day to optimize exposure. But then someone looking over your shoulder who doesn't understand what you're doing says, hey, why does that post show up 5 times this week in our wall? And then that person thinks that's all everyone sees is our specials for posting. What they realize is what you see on your Facebook as the admin and what the people who like you see on Facebook are entirely different. Okay? So in many cases, consistency, frequency, and we can use the word redundancy are going to be your most effective strategy. One of the biggest mistakes that people make in the utilization of social media is when they're posting, particularly as it relates to posting about treatments and procedures. So it's a special or an actual treatment or procedure, 7 ways to improve, 5 ways, 6 ways, you get the point. And then they create the post, and then when the person clicks on the post, the box opens up, and you can do one of 2 things, like or share, right? And you get limited engagement, and there is literally, it is technologically impossible when you do a self-contained post to drive someone from that post to a specific landing page on your website that will expose them to what is it, how does it work, what are the benefits, before and after pictures, and clear call to action. So that must be corrected immediately, okay? And when I say a heavy focus on manual process, Because in the organic world, the only way to increase, essentially, the only way to increase the number of people following you on a particular medium is you have to put processes in place in the front office across the entire organization to ask people and encourage people to follow you on those mediums. That's on the organic side. On the paid side, the first thing we have to do, and again, we'll keep this in the context of Facebook, is define your filters. Okay, so Facebook gives you the option to say, okay, you want to do some paid advertising for various reasons, which I'll talk about in a minute. What are the filters that you want to use? Geography, obviously, would be priority number one, because the modern medical practice tends to be geocentric. Now, there are cases where people fly in from outside the country, I get that, but for the most part, it's local, right? Age, interests are a big one. You can actually choose people who are interested in beauty or sports, whatever it is that's related to the practice that you have. Gender, and then there are other available less popular filters like more than X amount of dollars in income. And the reason why I say they're less popular is because they're not used widespread. So in other words, not everybody's comfortable putting their economic data into Facebook, so it makes those types of filters less predictable. But if you can hit on geo, age, interest, and gender, you got a pretty good chance of finding your target market in your area, okay? And the paid options, number one, you have to set a budget, right? So you can set a daily budget, weekly budget, or say we're willing to spend up to this, okay? That allows you to grow your audience, A, through like campaigns. So we've run a lot of significant number of like campaigns, and with 3 or 4 simple filters, we can get fairly dialed in on the person we're trying to attract, and typically keep your cost of acquisition for a good quality like under $1, depending upon the market that you're in. You know, there's Beverly Hills versus, Seattle, right? Those are going to be different marketplaces for that, depending upon the treatment or procedure. But the reality is, for relatively low cost, so let's say you're sitting at, you can go to all your social mediums and you look at your social followers and you see, hey, on Facebook, we've only got 600 followers. It's really not going to give us the critical mass we need. Let's try to drive that number to 3,000. So we set aside a budget for $2,500, spread that budget over 30, 60, 90 days, and then run an aggressive like campaign to increase the number of people that you have following on those mediums. And the reason I like that is because once somebody likes that page, now we have the opportunity to really connect with them and market to them relentlessly, right? So consistently and frequently over a long period of time versus spending your money on pay-per-click or Google AdWords, because those are a one-and-done strategy. Person clicks on the ad, and then a whole bunch of miracles need to happen to ultimately get them to be a patient for life, okay? So that's like campaigns. Next is you can run campaigns to promote specific pages on your website through procedure promotions. So the way we like to look at that is say, okay, what are the top 5 treatments or procedures that we're really good at, we're competitive at, we're known for, we got a great reputation, and we think we can attract those people to our website. So then you promote those posts related to those specific treatments or procedures. And the most important thing, as we discussed, is to make sure that we're creating a link from that post to a specific landing page on the site that talks about that procedure. What is it? How does it work? What are the benefits? Am I a good candidate? What are the potential downtimes? And how do I get started? With the before and after gallery, with a video that highlights the benefits of the treatment procedure, explains it, and sets the stage, and then obviously a phone number and a contact form. And that is social media, digital marketing 101. If you're not doing it that way, you're not going to get the result. Now, the corollary to that is, okay, that's great for promoting treatments and procedures, but what about likability and engagement? Well, there is absolutely a place for likability and engagement, okay? And I'm going to show you some specific examples of what I mean by that. And the best way to increase your connectivity through likability and engagement is you have to be your authentic self, okay? So I'm going to show you a plastic surgeon that we've been working with for many years. It's a good friend. In terms of the number of followers he has on social media, it's the highest of anybody I know in the world in terms of a plastic surgeon, over 55,000. But he is his authentic self, and he's willing to put himself out there a little bit. So some new trends are things like streaming live, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that, right? That will increase, likability and engagement. And so lastly, the third paid option is retargeting. So it's a very simple explanation. We create a cookie to remarket to Facebook, for example. So anyone we've got a post on Facebook, they go from Facebook to a specific page on our site. We place a cookie on them that wherever they go on the internet, we will be serving them up related ads. So, for example, you have probably been exposed to this. So you go to, Jimmy Choo's Shoes. You're on their Facebook page. You go to their website, and then you realize everywhere you go on the internet, you see an ad for Jimmy Choo's Shoes. Well, the reason for that is because they've dropped a cookie on you, and they're following you around on the internet. Okay, so those are the three ways that you can use paid options to grow your audience, promote specific pages on your website, and market to them on a consistent basis going forward. Okay, so if you remember last year, for those of you who were part of the series, we were talking about Dr. Jenna B. At that time, he had 20,710 likes associated with his primary Facebook page. But through the effective use of his leadership, encouraging his people, putting processes and tools in place, I want to talk about where he is now. So give me 1 second. So here what you see, guys, is the ideal, okay? Excuse me 1 second. So what you see here is the top referral domains for his practice. Excuse me, I have a little cold. So you can see here, the third largest driver of traffic to his website is Facebook. 792 visitors from Facebook to the site. And then you see Twitter, you see some email marketing, Real Self, Pinterest. So if you do the quick math on this, okay, 800, 900, call it 1,100 unique visitors that went from social media to his website. If you've got a website that converts at 6%, do the math. 6% of 1,100 is roughly 60 to 65 people that went from those social mediums to his website and inquired about specific treatments and procedures. If you follow that math further, right, if you could convert a quarter of those, 25% of the 60, that's 15. So 15 new patients acquired from social mediums. And then if the average revenue for a plastic surgeon associated with a new patient is $6,000, then you're looking at $90,000 a month, or essentially $1 million a year from social media. Is that worth the effort? Right? And so what does that look like in real terms? So let's fast forward to where Dr. Jenna B was last year when he was at 20,000. This year, you see he's at 36,473 likes. So he's added more than 16,000 likes in the span of 18 months. Okay? He's utilizing Snapchat, right? Which is a great medium. We can talk about that in a minute. And then the question is, what is he doing? How does he do it? So number one, we talked about the difference between linking and self-contained posts. So here you can see he's promoting his March specials. You click on the March specials page, and it takes you where? It takes you from the Facebook or whatever social media we're promoting to the March specials page. Talks about what the specials are. It's got a before and after gallery associated with that. That is, as I mentioned, digital marketing 101. Okay? In terms of him doing some of the, what I talked about before, some of the really trendy stuff that I love, he's actually willing to do live procedures on Facebook. Now, not every practice is going to be comfortable with that, and I get it. But if you think about this, right? So here he is talking about Kybella, okay? At my spa, getting Kybella chin injections, 2 treatments, 2 months. Here's what it costs, a live procedure. What you see here is 1,100 views associated with that post. It's hard to get 1 view with a post. To get over 1,000, you're getting maximum media exposure. And then you can see, looking for mommy-daughter team for price-reduced surgeries, not free. 11 comments. People are actually talking about, how do I get that done? So it's true engagement, right? So the blocking and tackling stuff, promoting a chin augmentation page, that's going to, if we would click on it, that's going to take you right back to his chin augmentation page on his website. And that's how you're going to get to that conversion number, right? So when you see 1,000 people went from Facebook to the website, that's because it's designed to actually, that's because you're creating backlinks to get them there, right? So if you're creating posts that are self-contained, there's no way to get back to the site, and you've got, you know, the typical dog driving a car, and you get 15 likes, well, that's all good and it makes you feel good, but did that sell any tummy tucks? Which, at the end of the day, if it didn't, defeats the entire purpose of social media. Does that make sense? Okay. And then some of the other fun things, and I'd be curious to hear in the end when we have some time, you know, what people are doing, if anything, to from a live perspective and actually streaming, because this is somewhat controversial, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Stand straight. So, oh, 9, 10. Oh my goodness. Getting a full body makeover. So as you can see from this post, guys, it's smart lipo time, 8 areas of lipo, 18,883. Mention this when you call for a $1,000 savings. 3,000 views. Now, it may not be your taste to sit and watch him perform lipo, and it's certainly not my taste, but the reality is there's a large percentage of people out there that are very interested in this. Not only are they interested in the technical aspects of lipo, but they're also interested in, how do I connect with you, save the $1,000, and book the procedure? Okay? So, and you can see there's 104 comments associated with that post. So like anything in life, there's this Kardashian effect. And we can say we like it or we don't like it. But the reality is that people are becoming much more comfortable. So, you know, go back 10 years, 15 years, when someone's talking about doing a treatment, one of the conversations always started with, well, I want it to look natural. I don't want anyone to know. Well, now it's almost the opposite. People say, well, first of all, I want it to look amazing, and I don't care who knows, right? And so one of the questions that Dr. Jenna B gets asked all the time, excuse me one second. One of the questions he gets asked all the time is, well, how do you compensate the, quote, you know, patients that are in these videos? And he kind of chuckles and says, compensate? He's like, these people fight to get into these videos. Because, again, it's the Kardashian effect. So at the end of the day, what we have to remember is that in and of itself, social media is absolutely a viable source. And if we go back to what we talked about, right? Whether it's organic or paid, The juice is absolutely worth the squeeze. But at the end of the day, you cannot create an effective social media campaign in a vacuum and not combine it with leadership, management of your people, right? In other words, what are the expectations, the processes, and the tools they need. So what I mean by that is, let's say you put the greatest social media campaign together in the world, and somebody actually watches what you did on Facebook and says, how much does that cost? Whose responsibility is it in the practice to be monitoring those sites, to be responding in a HIPAA-compliant way to the inquiries you receive on those sites? Who's responsible to get them to actually book a consultation, to enter them into a tool that's going to automate the follow-up, build value in the practice, and move them along in the sales process? Who's going to make sure they show up for the consultation? Who's going to make sure we track that the origin of that inquiry was actually from a social medium? And then keep track of the ROI so that we can demonstrate to the physician or the practice manager, whoever it is, that it's actually worth our time, energy, and effort. And at the end of the day, that's the only way that the modern medical practice is going to be effective and successful in a sustained way with social media. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer a few questions. And then obviously, to everyone, visit our site, check out what we do, and we'd love to hear from you. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain those at this time. And I see, I'll get up to them in a second, guys. Right. Someone said, hopefully I'll feel better soon. Thank you. So when you say liking from your social media to the website, this is, for some reason, is not doing what I want to do. So when you say linking from your social media to the website, is there an easy software platform or tool to help that? So yes, there are a few. Obviously, crystal clear for transparency, full disclosure, we offer a tool that does that. It's simple, easy to use. There are other tools like Hootsuite that perform similar functions. The key is you want to make sure that all of those elements are integrated, whether it's the website, social media, email marketing, any type of Google AdWords that you're doing. You want to make sure that all of those are speaking to each other. So Hootsuite is a fantastic tool. It's a standalone tool versus what we offer, which is integrated with the site and all the other aspects of your digital marketing strategy. So when you say linking from social media to the website, is there an easy software? Yes. Top referral domains, is this annual or monthly? Hold on, what do you offer as retargeted ads go? Well, we offer a solution that integrates all elements of social media, including organic and the paid elements. So whether it's like campaigns, promotional procedure campaigns, and retargeting campaigns. And obviously the best ones are the ones that are done in conjunction. In other words, it's a blended strategy. Does anybody else have any other questions on here? And I apologize for the delay with the questions. Do you track generational demographics on these social media sites? If we are targeting audience of X years of age range, how do we prioritize? Well, the way that you would prioritize would be the offerings, right? And so if you think about it, so for example, sometimes you go to a website and you'll see 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. You want to make sure that your offering is consistent with the demographic, right? Because somebody in their 60s needs something different than somebody in their 50s, 40s, 30s. You get the point. And so, yes, you can track that, and then you have to match the message to the target. Let's see here. So someone just said, could you please give a few reasons why you should use your services as opposed to, let's say, work directly with Hootsuite? Well, Hootsuite is a tool, great question. Hootsuite is a tool that you do the work. So you create the posts, you put them in your scheduling software, and then Hootsuite will post those out to the social mediums. Crystal Clear, we actually create and execute the post for you. And so we're posting typically 52 times a week across all social mediums. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. And so we're doing the work for you as opposed to Hootsuite, which is where you do the work. And then the biggest, apart from that, it's a tiny piece of what Crystal Clear does. We only offer a fully integrated solution that incorporates everything from the site to the software to your analytics, to your SEO, to your email, to your social, to your specials marketing, and training your people. So ours is a completely different platform. That Hootsuite is, would be considered 5% of what we do. That makes sense. Can you touch base on Snapchat and give an idea what is the best way to start if your office is starting a new account? Well, the first thing you have to do, obviously, outside of setting up the page, is you need to start creating content, right? So the manual process would be letting people know, hey, you got to check us out on Snapchat, but there has to be good quality content there, right? So who is the person that's going to actually create the content, post the content? What is the content going to be? Who is the content targeted towards, right? And it can't just be really dry. Someone sits there and says something stupid, or a picture of a, something that's not relevant to treatments and procedures. In a perfect world, you would have a provider, be it esthetician or a physician or whoever it is, dermatologist, that is actually creating engaging content. You only have a certain amount of time, right? That's interesting, engaging, but also gets people to go to the website. Content is king. Are there any other questions? I'm just making sure that I got them all. Hold on. I go to a lot of seminars. They always tell me that engagement is the most important, but you are saying traffic. Can you please help me understand that a little more? Yes. So if the ultimate, I guess the question is, what is the ultimate goal for you? What are your business goals? And if you say, well, my business goals are for more people to go on our social mediums and like our stuff, then I guess that would be the most important thing. If your business goal is the most important thing for us is to get people to our website, fill out forms of call to practice, and give us money, then I would focus on traffic. There really is no third way. Now, that being said, it's the blend that is the ideal. So if we can get people in the practice involved, get the practitioner involved, in other words, whether it's doing treatments or procedures, putting up pictures of events that you're having in your office, anything that it's important. So there's two pieces, right? There's connectivity and branding, and that's about engagement. Okay, that's creating stuff that people like, share, and that's awesome. But that's not the primary objective, because you cannot pay your mortgage with a like or a share. You can only pay your mortgage with money and checks cash from performing treatments and procedures. Does that make sense? But it is a blend. It's great. Linking. Yes, so it says, so your software does the posting, but also gives us the ability to schedule. Well, it says to schedule like Hootsuite. We have all the functionality of Hootsuite built into our software, and it's actually more robust than Hootsuite. So you can schedule your own posts if you're doing, one-day flash specials. Super easy to do. Then it says when you generate content for social media for a clinic across different social media portals, how do you reflect the authenticity of the practitioners in each post? Well, there's a how do you reflect the practitioners in each individual practice? Well, if by that you mean you've got 4 or 5 practitioners doing different types of treatments and procedures, and you want to represent that across multiple social mediums, you've got to get either each practitioner involved or each practitioner represented in the posting, right? So if one is one is an integrated medicine guy or gal, and the other one is a plastic or wellness or agement, whatever it is, we've got to make sure that we have a blended strategy in the content we create. And I think people they don't get confused if there's different types of treatments and procedures going on one individual social media page. So one way is to make sure that each of those are represented on a consistent basis, and you might want to create a little algorithm for yourself that says there's 5 disciplines in our practice, so every 5th post will be represented. Each discipline will be represented in every 5th post. The other option that you have, which is less desirable, is create individual, and I probably wouldn't recommend that at all. You create individual Facebook mediums for those. But I would do one site per social medium, and then make sure each one of those practitioners is represented equally. Hope that makes sense. So I think with that, we're about out of time. So I want to thank everyone who participated today. This is a series, as many of you know. So the next webinar will be posted shortly. So pay attention to your inbox. If you enjoyed the webinar today and you got a lot out of it, please let your friends know. Most important thing to us is that we're providing valuable content into the health, wellness, and aesthetic space. We feel like that's part of our mission, which is why we do these at no cost. And of course, it gives us exposure in the marketplace. So I want to say thank you for attending. It was great to get so many thoughtful questions, and hopefully you got the answers you were looking for. And I hope check out our website. We'd love to hear from you. We offer a free 30-minute online presentation. It's got great information. It'll be the best time you ever spent. So thank you once again. I look forward to hearing from you again shortly.